We are two women in academia,
raising questions and breaking down perceptions
from a Black point of view.
Welcome to the Black Gaze Podcast.
It's your girl, Dr. Porcher.
And it's your girl, Dr. Bertrand.
Friend. I was about to say, where are you at?
Girl, listen, I can only put one at a time. And I said, let her go out there so she can say, what's up? So, keep the people warm.
Friend, what's up? How are you today?
Well, almost, didn't record the show. But other than that.
Listen, I love our authenticity and our truth telling about the Black Gaze Podcast, because with all of the different platforms, all of the different spaces, you have done an excellent job at keeping us on task. So you ran it back. Thank God we can run it back. So friend, we're gonna get right into it because we got two guests today, two co-hosts today.
Two guests, one for the load and one for the plug. No,
what's that man that Kevin Gates? Ah, look at me.
His name is Kevin Gates, who sings two phones.
No, I don't know.
Yes, I think.
Girl, don't be out here embarrassing me. I think that's him. Don't play. You could at least say something about 2 Chainz. But anyway, friend, what we talking about today?
We talking about hip-hop education.
We talking about hip-hop education, and we are also celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, okay? So we had to bring on 2 people that I love and I admire. So I'm going to let you tell the folks first, the first person we got coming on today. You go first.
Okay. All right. You know what? I messed up. I got 2 screens, but they in opposite ways. So if you're looking at this, then you ain't going to get my eye contact because I got to read. But we have...
Hold on, wait, pause. You remember old school church when they used to be like, saints, read.
When they used to read the scripture, but then we got to see the literacy rate was low in the Black church.
How are you putting our business out there like that?
Bye. Let me tell you who we got. Let's bring them on, and then you can do your shenanigans. But we need to really bring them on.
You first.
Okay, I'm first. So I have the honor, and you know what? I think we met them last year for the first time at AERA. For those of you who don't know what AERA is,
this year.
It was this year, 2023. American Education Research Association. Is that what it is?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Well, we met them there, and they have such a beautiful spirit, but we were engaging with them on social media. And even now I follow them on Instagram, and I get to see their like beautiful garden and how
garden.
Yes. I was like, come on, food from the garden. Because I get mine from Produce Junction. But I want to introduce this person because they are truly just a beautiful spirit. And that is no one other than Dr. Kelly Allen.
Tell us about her.
No, I wanted you to go boom, 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 burn.
Oh, burn, 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 burn.
Yeah, I even pause for the cause. She is an assistant professor of curriculum studies in the College of Education and Human Development at Augusta University. Informed by her experiences as a high school social studies teacher, Kelly's research explores hip-hop as a Black liberatory praxis. She is the co-author. Co-author, and you got a book titled Teaching for Liberation on Freedom Dreaming in the Field of Hip-Hop Education.
Listen, that sounds like that's going to be a fire. But before we bring her out, we got to talk about my homie, my brother, who
also... Well, he became my homie too, okay?
I'll share him. Listen, I don't get to possess people. I'll share them. So I love that you gave a backstory because I'm trying to think about how I met Edmund officially. I just remember Dr. Christopher Emden posting about Edmund's work as he was finishing up his dissertation. And then I came to, he had just defended his dissertation at the Hip Hop Ed conference, and I went to it and I watched him present, and I was like, oh yeah, he the real deal. And it wasn't like just teaching hip hop education from like a very surface level, but like he knew all the elements, which we'll talk about in a second. But I was just really impressed with his work. So I don't even think we talked during that time. But then we went to the, let me get it right, the American Association of Blacks in Higher Education Conference. And his dissertation had won a dissertation award. And I just hit him up on Twitter, like, I think you up in this place. And we connected and we talked to each other outside of the session. And we like talked for hours, just chit chat and laugh and having a good time. And so Edmund is the real deal. Like he is dear to my heart. So let me tell y'all about my homie, okay? And your homie too. All right, Dr. Edmund Adjapong is an associate professor,
associate tenure in promotion
of education at Seton University. He is also a faculty fellow at the Institute for Urban and Multicultural Education at Teachers College, Columbia University, and the author of Hip Hop Ed, the compilation on hip hop education, volume 1. Now, E, if you got some new stuff, listen, we got this off your website. You should gave us something new, okay? Dr. Adjapong is a former middle school science educator at a New York City public school in the Bronx. He is the director of the Science Genius program, a program that engages urban students in the sciences through hip hop, and the director of the Science Genius Academy, a program that encourages and prepares students to pursue STEM careers while providing mentoring and support. He be outside in these streets doing real work. He be outside. Dr. Adjapong is a STEM and urban education advocate whose work and research addresses issues of race, class, and equities in education and misperceptions of urban youth. He focuses on how to incorporate youth culture into educational spaces. Dr. Adjapong has experience conducting seminars and workshops for business and universities. So if you need his help, hit him up. So can I get the bullhorns for my homie?
I don't want to do it. You got to do it for yourself.
So, yeah. So please bring Alfred, bring them in the room, bring them out, bring them out. Dr. Adjapong and Dr. Allen. What's up, y'all?
What up?
Wait, first of all that energy we just gave y'all gotta give us that.
We here. We're excited to be
here. They're like, hey, we on Black Gays.
I guess we on the Black Gays podcast. I guess we here. Okay.
Yeah, we here.
Y'all, we super excited to talk to y'all about hip hop education. And I'm excited about this conversation for real, because I feel like when we think about the ways in which people try to execute hip hop education in classrooms, it can be very surface level. So I'm super excited to talk to you all as we celebrate 50 years of hip hop, and y'all can give folks like the black print on how they could do this in just a short amount of time. But if y'all really want to know, then y'all need to hit them up and pay them to pull up on y'all. So friend, am I first or you first?
You first.
Dang, okay. So, y'all, on the Black Gays podcast, we always start off honoring the OGs. And so I know this is a hard question, but I want y'all to think about someone or some people, because I like to have more than one, who inspired you to do this work in hip hop education. So I'm going to start with Kelly.
All right. So OGs, when I think of like people who inspire me to do this work, I think of Black intellectuals, period. Because for me, it's not just hip hop, it's about Black liberation. And I'm a social studies educator. So like I grew up through my teacher education program, reading the work of like LeGarrette King. And his framework on like Black historical consciousness, right, is deeply informs the way that I think of hip hop as being a part of Black historical consciousness, right, and Black contemporary consciousness. And then I always got to shout out my sister scholar, Christosity Turner. She has like the spirit of an OG, like the wisdom that she gives me and provides me through everything is unmatched. And so even though we technically the same age, when I think of people who inspire me to do this work, it's her, because the way that she theorizes about Blackness and she thinks about like Black femininity in particular inspires me to think differently about how we engage with hip hop.
I love it.
I love that. I love that. And I didn't even think about, or now that you said it, made the connection to Dr. LeGarrette King and the work that he does and like how that informs what you do in hip hop. So thanks for shouting him out and giving us a new person.
Come on, new person.
Oh, E, who's your person? Who inspired you to do this work around hip hop ed?
So, my mind is going. I'm like, well, first, always gotta, shout out Chris. As like my personal OG and big brother and mentor, because like Chris taught me when I was in high school. He was my high school.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Small world, right? And we've been close ever since, but he used hip hop in the class, when I was a school student. And I didn't go off to college directly with aspirations of becoming an educator. But, I reflected on my experiences while he was leveraging hip hop in the class. And that's what really sparked my interest and motivation. And it was really a true and authentic culture responsive approach that allowed me to see science in a way that truly connected to me. And when I started exploring teacher ed and teacher prep programs, that's something that I really wanted to convey. And, I really want to leverage science and education in general and find deep connections with students. So, for me, it really starts off with Chris and really him experimenting in the high school class and us picking it up and seeing how much further we can take it. But, also the OG Gloria Laston Millings, such a remarkable OG for someone who can be so intuitive, as a scholar and recognize and highlight the importance of hip hop and also recognize and acknowledge that she may not be an expert in hip hop per se, but definitely acknowledge its practical applications and how it can also align to culture responsive teaching and approaches. And, then entering the field and doing research and reading other people's work, I definitely want to shout out Trisha Rose, for being an exemplary and, really forward thinking person to write a hip hop studies book in the early 90s. And also, Bakari.
Edmund got my spirit. I love it.
Listen, but I ain't coming for him because he's dropping so many.
So many gems though.
Yeah, we got gems. It's a Friday, so we got to do it. And last but not least, Bakari Kitwana, right? He wrote the hip hop generation, and just really thoughtful and critical folks who I really like to hang my work on and try to extend their work because their work is so inspiring. It really gave us the foundation and the black print, right? Of like, how can we leverage his work and move from being so surface level to being more nuanced and explore deep connections of, how can we connect hip hop with young people and content.
You said something that I think we need to stop and like acknowledge, because like you went through the OGs of people who have done this work, right? And you made the connection to social studies, Kelly, which I think is so dope because you're in humanities, he's in science, right? But when we think about like we're doing this, we get to do the work that we love, but just think about the journey that it took for them to even put that work out. Like, was it respected? Was it seen as something that should even be in academia or something that should be in an education space? That's why it's so important for us to honor the people who have come before us, because we talk big mess sometimes, and I'm like, no, you get to do this work because someone sacrificed and did that work. So I thank y'all for going back and saying like these are the people who kind of laid the foundation for us to be able to do this work. So Dr. B.
Well, the interesting thing too is as we are also celebrating 50 years of hip hop, you've taken us on a journey that this did not just start when you entered the field. Like people have been doing this. And so I really loved how you bring us into this space of a storyline. Like this has been going on. We've been on this. But I want to start the interview, and Keisha and I was talking prior to y'all coming on here, and she's so
girl, you better get that energy off me.
Because she tried to play me, y'all.
I said, who is your favorite hip hop artist? And she said, well, I got a few.
I did, and I said Meek. And I said me and him, we got a little friction because he be acting real sensitive.
Don't put that man business out here like that.
But then I had said Tupac, and then she mentioned Jay-Z, and we started having, and then this is where it get because then I said Trick Daddy, and she talked about, I could see that.
No, where's the lie? That's the question. This is about them, not us.
She said, I I can see that. I said, oh, what you trying to say? But I love Trick Daddy Dollars. But whatever. So I have a question for y'all. And I'll start with you on this one, Edmund. Who is your favorite hip hop artist, and what is your favorite hip hop song? Like what when that come on, you like, I got this, I got the lyrics, might even have a little Bobby Shmurda dance to go with it. Who is it?
So favorite hip hop artist is easy. Hip hop song is a little bit more challenging, but I think anybody who knows me knows that Jay-Z is the
I saw that
the best and the greatest of all time. I mean, I'm in my office, I got some Jay-Z stuff everywhere, but Jay, just because I think just coming up as a teenager, I've always been inspired and intrigued by him as an artist, but also like inspired by his business acumen and just how he navigates spaces. And I've always admired that about him. And I remember like being in the 8th grade when like 99 Problems came out, and I have friends. They're like, "Yo," they like not understanding the nuance in his lyrics. Like, we can't listen to that as whack. I'm like, nah, like this is so dope and it's so deep. And so like it's always been like a disconnect from me and my peers, my fellow peers around like my admiration for Jay-Z. But I think Jay is the best hip hop artist of all time. And you can argue with your mama if you want about that.
Look, argue with your mama, your grandma, because it ain't gonna be me. I said what I said.
And I don't know, favorite hip hop song. I feel like because I say Jay's my favorite artist, I got to go with a Jay song. But like one of my favorite, I know we don't, but one of the first thing that pops into mind is Brooklyn's Finest. It's a song off a Reasonable Doubt, and it's Jay and Biggie. And the reason why it's one of my favorite songs is because just the exchange, the lyrical exchange in that song, and as the song progresses, it just continues to increase. Like they just keep going back and forth in a very loving way. They're not battling each other, but you can tell it's a battle in terms of like they're both telling stories with each other. And Jay and Hov had such a amazing synergy on records that we didn't really get enough of a chance to experience. But them two together is just fire.
That brought me joy. That brought me joy right there. Dr. Allen, what about you, sis? First of all, who is your favorite hip hop artist? Yep. And then secondly, what is your favorite hip hop song?
Okay, I cannot pick between two people.
Okay, well, give us both.
For my favorite. So I love Meg Thee Stallion.
Really?
I love Meg Thee Stallion.
As favorite? Okay.
I mean, hey, we're not talking about the best.
Fair.
We're talking about Kelly Allen's favorite.
I respect
because I get it. We can talk about lyricism. We can talk about da-da-da-da-da all day. I'm talking about when I'm in the mood to really feel myself. Who am I turning on? I'm turning on Meg Thee Stallion. I'm turning on Young Dolph. Okay. Those are the two people that I'm turning on every time. I'm driving into work, into this institution. Best believe it's going to be some Young Dolph. It's going to be some Meg Thee Stallion playing through my radio.
I ain't never heard nobody say Young Dolph. May he rest in peace. But I ain't never heard nobody say that that's his favorite. Are you from Memphis?
No.
Listen, my go-to when I need to feel myself is The Gift and the Curse. Every time. I'm untouchable.
Right?
Listen.
Mine would be Meek Mill, Dreams and Nightmares.
Okay.
Good one.
Hold on, wait a minute. Y'all thought
I was finished?
Well, y'all thought it was Why we like this? Okay, let's focus.
Okay. So we got Meg Thee Stallion, we got Young Dolph,
we got Jay.
Now Meg Thee Stallion, I might can run with you on that. But what is your favorite hip hop song? And like, it don't have to come from those people, but what's your favorite hip hop song?
Yeah. So like, I think this is really hard because I feel like it always like depends on the mood that I'm in. Right. So right now, like I can play Meg Thee Stallion Not Nice on repeat. But like if I feel like turning up, you best believe that I'm gonna turn on Preach by Young Dolph. I'm turning on Preach every time.
I don't even know what that is. I'm like, I gotta write this down.
Me too. I'm like, because listen, when I want to I'm still playing Juvenile's Tiny Desk, but that's a story.
That's Juvenile's
Was that not the best?
Fire.
Don't play. Because I'm a Hot Boys fanatic. Me and Dr. B's husband, we love. I'm talking about old school Cash Money Records.
Yeah.
It was going to a Cash Money concert, but it was on a day.
Let's focus out. Okay, so I want to ask this question, and I know it might, be like, I could tell y'all that, but especially for the people who listen to us, because I think it's so important for us to like dispel what people think hip hop is. So I want to ask you all, what is hip hop? What are the elements of hip hop? I know it's a lot. And how does hip hop center Blackness? And I'm gonna let y'all jump in. Y'all can bounce off of each other, work it out.
You want to get it started, Kelly?
No, you good. This is your stuff right here.
This is stuff.
I guess so. Hip hop it's a beautiful and nuanced culture, right? And I always argue that hip hop is probably one of the most welcoming and all encompassing cultures. But hip hop it's a culture that was created for and by Black communities, right, and Black folks, right? So to me, hip hop is Black culture. And hip hop is super nuanced, right? And when we could talk about hip hop from a very foundational standpoint, and we go through the elements, right? And then we could talk about hip hop from maybe a more societal and commercialized perspective, right? Who are very different. And I think a lot of folks are more aware of the commercialized perspective and aspect of hip hop, because that's what we normally and traditionally engage in. But if we're talking about foundational, right? Hip hop started in the Bronx, late 70s, as a response to a lot of social economic challenges that folks were experiencing in inner cities across the country, but particularly in the Bronx and New York City. And for me, I articulate that hip hop is a response to challenging times. And what hip hop is the joy, right, and the liberation that Black people seek when they're going through challenging times, right? So hip hop is just another example that we see many examples during, the Black lineage and heritage in this country. But hip hop is all about joy and liberation and love for me, right? That's the core of hip hop. And then we go into the elements, you got b-boying, DJing, MCing, graffiti, and knowledge of self. So, that's more foundational hip hop, and we go into more details. But I want to give Kelly some space to jump in here.
That was perfect. That was perfect. The only thing that I would say is like I think of hip hop as like a counter narrative of Black life and Black self-expression. And when we think about what the importance of a counter narrative is, and like how it's so unique to that individual, right? I think we begin to see how hip hop is a display of like the full range of Black humanity. Yep. A lot of times, Blackness is relegated to certain stereotypes, right? And I think that in hip hop, we see like the full range of Blackness, right? And I think that's what's so beautiful about hip hop. And I also think that that's what opens hip hop up to so many critiques, right? Because some of the narratives feed into the stereotypes, right? And I think that is something that is beautiful about hip hop.
And that, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say too, like Edmund, when you named the elements, I think it's so important because I share these with my students, and all my students really know about is the DJing part, right? The music part. And so when I said knowledge of self, I remember when I taught this last year, and I actually used your work, Edmund, and Dr. Lauren Kelly's work, and the students were like, "What do you mean knowledge of self? What is that? Like, I don't see how that's present in hip hop." And then when they read you all's articles, they were like, "Oh, so this isn't just about me listening to music that I like and like lyrics, it's much deeper." So I thank you for like breaking that down for people.
Yeah. Hip hop is it's about, like, I love Kelly added that it's about expression, right? Particularly Black expression, right? Because hip hop created this space for Black people to feel comfortable enough to express themselves and create a platform to express themselves, but also while expressing themselves however they want and however we choose, right? Whether that be ratchet, whether that be intellectual, whether that be like showcasing poverty and challenges within your community, hip hop becomes that contested space where we're able to do that. and platform those perspectives and experiences and share them authentically with the world, right? You know, without hip hop, I mean, look, the stereotypes against Black folks exist, right? And they always existed, right? But hip hop provides us an opportunity it's a safe space for us to be our true selves and engage, you know, within a society that often looks down and pushes Black people to the margins of society. You know what I mean?
Even when you said that, Edmund, I'm thinking about like, you know how we say in the Black community, don't air our dirty laundry. Like, don't be telling folks what we doing out there if we ain't supposed to be doing it. And when you said that, like, it's a safe space for that expression, right? So that means that expression might not align with how people feel like Black people should show up, right? And so hip hop has become a space that even for people who are hurting or engaging in behavior that might not feel pleasing, this is their outlet in the ways in which they are responding. Don't make it right, but like it is still a space for them to express themselves.
Yeah, facts. And everybody needs that space. And, you know, we have to create that space and we have to take it for ourselves, right? We, you know, before the 70s, how many spaces were there where we can just really, truly be ourselves without having such a critique of who we are or how we should show up? You know, definitely when you consider respectability politics, right? And what that looked like, you know, there's a bunch of Black folks who like, nah, you can't be showing up like that in different spaces. But like, nah, this is what we're doing. This is hip hop and this is who we are. So let's show up and show out.
You know, as you're talking, I'm thinking about like hip hop. You talk about it being this space, right, where we can, and even Keisha, you bringing in sharing our dirty laundry. That's something that we typically don't do, but we use this space to just vent. Really, it's like therapy for some people. But I think about hip hop regionally, like West Coast rap. The Texas got its own thing. Young Dolph and them in Memphis had their own thing. Miami, like the South got their own thing. Like even though Florida and Texas is the South, but Atlanta got its own thing. New York, like everybody, the Midwest. And so it's so interesting too that it is this space where people get to express themselves, yet it sounds different. Some they may be facing some of the same situations, but yet it's still a struggle that we're all facing. It just looks differently by where we are placed. And so that I believe is such a beauty of hip hop too, is that we can all be venting our struggles, but the lyrics are going to be different. The stories are going to be different. Everything about it is just going to be different. Like I'm even was imagining as y'all were talking, NWA. Just F the police and just the ways in which they were standing. I did not curse Nana. I had to tell her from my grandma and she listened. But in the ways in which, you know, they stood up against police brutality, it might not have looked in the way that we, you know, respectability or sounded that way. Women ain't nothing but hoes and, you know, like that. Like I know, but I'm going somewhere. So degrading, but at the same time, it was an expression. And so that pushes me into this next question, because here's the thing, and maybe I'm out of pocket, but what I also notice is a lot of people be coming against hip hop hard. I feel like more so in the earlier years than now, or
they be talking smack right now.
But they always saying like it's a negative message and this, that, and the other. And Keisha and I was just in Texas. And I see white folk bumping this, the Asian folks bumping this, like people just out here listening to
cultural appropriation.
Yet, people bring a lot of heat and madness about how negative rap lyrics are. We don't want our kids listening to this, blah, blah, blah. But even with this pushback, why is it important to expose students to hip hop education? Because I feel like that is something that both of you do so beautifully. And even Edmund, I didn't know Chris was your teacher. And for those of you who are listening, we're talking about Dr. Christopher Emden. I didn't know that was your teacher, but obviously he has some impact on you where you could, you know, become, you know, more interested in teaching, because that wasn't something that you was even interested in. So why is this important to expose students?
Man, so I can start. So, you know, this is why, like, anytime I go into a hip hop space and like you ask like that first question of like, who's your favorite hip hop artist? I always feel like the need to like lie about who I love, because they're so critique. Like people like, you love, you're a hip hop scholar, like you like Young Dolph, but you think like you don't even admit, like, you know, I know he's playing and stuff like that. It's like all he raps about is violence and, you know, the trap and like all of this type of stuff.
I don't know Young Dolph.
Yeah. I don't know nothing about him, but he had them cars with the rappings. They all look alike. I don't know nothing about him.
I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna look him up though when I get up out of here.
But go ahead.
But like I love like trap music. Like when we talk about like like I love trap music, and that's the hip hop music along with drill that gets critiqued so hard for perpetuating violence and things like this. And it goes back, for me, it goes back to, I position trap and drill music as a counter narrative, right? It might make you uncomfortable to hear about the violence. It may make you uncomfortable to hear young people talking about feeling the need to strap up and, you know, hearing about them selling drugs. But guess what? Like where I'm from in Milwaukee, that's real. That's real. We really got 13-year-olds out here on the street stealing cars. And it's not because of the hip hop music that's making them do that. They're doing that irregardless of what the hip hop music is saying. They actually making their own hip hop music about what they really doing out there on the streets, right? And, you know, we can talk about some kids, you know, playing like almost like cosplay, you know, they aren't really out here doing this stuff. But they're in some communities, they really are. They really out here doing drugs. They're getting locked up at a young age, right, for breaking the law. And to ignore that reality is very, very real for particularly some Black youth that like I've worked with in Milwaukee, right, for example. I think that is just it's oppressive, right? It's another way that we silence the nuances of Black stories, right? Just because that's not your story, because you don't like to hear it, it makes you uncomfortable, doesn't mean that it's not very real and doesn't resonate for a lot of people, right? And so I think about it when I think about hip hop education. I theorize it through what I call like a trap crit epistemology, right? I look at trap crit through the lens of like critical race theory and like Black crit as like it is telling a story about Black life. And whether that story makes you uncomfortable or not, there's stuff that we can learn about, right? When I listen to Young Dolph, I think of like he talking about violence, but like what are the layers of social political awareness in that story as well? Like what systems are at play for him to even have that experience in Memphis, right? When I think about Black joy, right? Black historical consciousness. You want to talk about exposing students to the full range of Black humanity and then the importance of that, like for me as a social studies teacher, let's talk about joy as refusal, right? And I'm going to absolutely refuse to consider that I should not be excited to ball out and I'm going to have my chains. I'm going to show you my car because guess what? I got it out the mud and you better watch me. Right. And you're not going to tell me that I don't deserve to shine right now. Like that's powerful. That's powerful. But it too often gets reduced to a simple glorification, right, of money and things like that. But guess what? Like for somebody who really got it out the mud, like real life got it out the mud, man, you better watch me shine.
Right? Listen, you better watch us shine.
And that's on Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Come on, it's a bar.
Watch me. What them kids say?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Watch me. What? I'm leaving you out there never by yourself. Edmund, what about you?
That was amazing.
Why is it important to expose students to hip hop education?
I mean, everything Kelly said, you know, and I mean, they already exposed to hip hop. You know what I mean? Like white kids are the #1 consumer of hip hop.
Absolutely.
Top consumer. You go to a concert, you go to any festival, you go to any concert across the country, is majority white folks in there, right? So, I mean, that's a very basic argument, right? But for me, it's really about y'all already engaged in our culture, right? So how about we give you an appropriate lens to effectively engage and be critical and make sense of it, right? As opposed to like being able to step in and step out of the culture. Like Kelly and I, we write a lot and we've done a lot of thinking and theorizing around just the cultural appropriation that white and other folks engage in when engaging in hip hop, because it's hip hop is Black culture, right? And even if you engage in hip hop as a Black person or you don't, you're always going to be stigmatized as a kind of a hip hop person or a hip hop adjacent person, right? But white folks and other folks who engage in hip hop are able to step in and out of those identities as they please, right? To be able to, all right, cool, I'm going to the Drake concert tonight, you know, and I'm gonna say the N-word a little bit, you know what I mean? But and be able to step out of that. Maybe if you quote unquote outgrow it, you're not into it, it's not your thing anymore, right? But this is somebody's culture. This is something that they're engaging in. This is something that they've connected with their entire life, and they don't have that opportunity to step in and step out, right? So for me, it's really about valuing and demonstrating the value of Black culture through hip hop, right? And also providing, like Kelly said, this idea of like this Black consciousness, right? Providing folks with an opportunity to be critical and make sense of the experiences and realities of Black folk, right? Because that's what hip hop is. It shares that message. It shares those realities, whether they are true or maybe whether they're exaggerated, right? I always say, like, even if a rapper is exaggerating a story or experience, even if they're exaggerating, it might be somebody else's experience, right? Learn from these experiences, and I think it's a privilege and it's an opportunity too. So, particularly when it comes into schools and education, like, young folks are hip hop, right? And I'm not saying every little kid, every student in a school participates fully in hip hop, right? But hip hop, it's so powerful and so global that it transcends boundaries, it transcends genres, right? So maybe kids may not listen to hip hop music, but they got a hip hop aesthetic, right? Hip hop through various sensibilities, right? Which may not be the music. So that's why it's so important for folks to recognize that hip hop is so much more than just music, right? It's a culture, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of being, it's a way of seeing the world. So it's really about, like, if it's all of that and you got Wiz Khalifa selling Oreos, right? Why can't we bring hip hop into schools, right? It's everywhere else, right? It's on the NFL halftime show every year.
NBA.
You know what I mean? It's everywhere.
The commercials, all that. It is.
But when it comes time to learning, right, and educating,
you don't want
right, and raising awareness and consciousness, this may not be the space for that. And all that's intentional and deliberate, right? Like, why would folks want us to learn about our history, particularly the history that we created within this country, right? Hip hop is Black history. Hip hop is American history, right? And when we talk about like Kelly was, alluding to the violence, like, hip hop is violent. Hip hop is misogynistic. Hip hop is homophobic. Hip hop is all of those things, right? Hip hop is not perfect, and we have a lot of issues that we need to make sense of and interrogate within our own culture. But hip hop is also a reflection of American society. I mean, you got Godfather movies. They killing each other, blowing each other up.
Listen, I always talk about these white channels, this white on white crime, date ID, they be cutting each other up and doing all that stuff. Nobody will be saying nothing about that. Not one thing.
It's a reflection.
What's the Teen Mom thing? The little Teen Mom show they got?
Teen Mom, because I do watch it on MTV.
I'm just saying, but they glorify the same challenges.
They getting big checks. They getting big checks.
Right. So that's the piece of it, right? White folks who engage and participate. Like, there's always people who have this. Don't get me started, because you go on TikTok and Instagram and you see these white folks who are appropriating hip hop culture and not, listen, everybody can participate. That's where I stand. But, like, there's a fine line between appropriation and recognition of the culture. So you might have white women twerking on social media and finding a way to capitalize off of that hip hop aesthetic, but they can go out in their regular lives and not have that hip hop aesthetic, but they're able to come into this space and make money and capitalize off. Then you got kids who are making the dances, the Renegade, as an example.
I just thought about that.
You know what I mean? And not getting the credit for that when they're the ones.
Dang on well, these little girls, these little non-melanated girls in these suburban areas ain't made of no dance like that. They ain't got no swag like that. But you see them all shaking their shoulders and doing all this mess. Okay. Yeah. Listen, this when you were talking, Edmund, it also made me think about the work of Dr. April Baker Bell. And that she does around Black language. And she has an activity in her book where she says, and I have my students do it, like, when you go into stores and even when you buy clothes, like, you'll see stuff that says I slay, right? Like, or you can just see that on like a random, like, let's say, picture on the wall. Like, why is it that you can purchase all of these things and benefit from the Black culture when it's beneficial for you? But when we ask students, when we don't want students to use Black language or speak Black language in our classrooms, but everybody, and I have my students go through an activity and they're like, oh, I do use Black language when I'm with my friends, but I just don't think it's appropriate here. And so we have to have those critical conversations about, why do you think it's appropriate to say it with your friends? Do you think it makes you more cool? Why wouldn't it be okay for you to stay here? They were like, well, it's informal. Tell me what you mean when you say informal. So like even using hip hop as a way to push back on students, like, okay, why is it okay for you to engage with this all day, every day, but when you come into a space that you deem has some type of, like success, like, oh, I can't use it here, like, stop the madness.
And one thing that me and Edmund talk about a lot as we're writing is, at its core, right, we get this question so much, like anytime we're talking to teachers, oh, what about the negative stuff, right? At the end of the day, you have a hard time talking to your kids about race and racism, whether hip hop's in the space or not, right? At the end of the day, the same people who are asking these questions have a hard time talking about incarceration and the carceral system, right? Whether hip hop is in the space or not. And so I think also a part of the discussion has to be, how are we preparing teachers to have serious, critical conversations about systemic racism, systemic injustices, whether hip hop is in the equation or not, because at the end of the day, anti-Blackness runs really deep, right? Like white privilege, white fragility, white supremacy runs really, really deep. And that influences, I think, people's willingness to engage in the work, because immediately they're like, I don't know how to navigate that conversation. Right. I don't know how to properly scaffold that conversation. It's gonna go off the rails. It's gonna, I'm gonna lose control of my classroom, right? Because we're not preparing people how to have that conversation in a constructive way.
Good. Woo. Okay. Y'all killing it. Like, and we all learned. I have, like, especially when you think about hip hop education, I'm thinking about the ways in which you all set it up so nicely in the beginning, like the history of where we've been. So in you all's opinion, what do you feel like have been some successes, challenges, some assets and gains of hip hop education?
Let's get straight to it, huh?
Let's get straight to it.
Let's get on in.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna talk about the challenges.
Okay, go.
That's me. Let's get out the way.
Okay.
I think, and Kelly and I talk about this a lot. One of the biggest challenges that, and Mark Lamont Hill writes about this in one of his books, is that there's a lot of hip hop ed research out there, right? I mean, there's enough out there that there could always be more, but a lot of the hip hop ed research is hyper personalized, right? So a lot of folks going into spaces or theorizing around hip hop, or like taking or pulling from hip hop, right? Or like, a cipher as a focus group, or whatever the case may be, right? So it's kind of surface level, not superficial, but surface level. And nothing is wrong with that, right? But what we need to flip that challenge is really go into doing a lot more empirical research, leveraging within schools. Because number one, hip hop, because it's Black culture, right? Look, we got 70-something% of our teachers across the nation identify as white women, right? You know what I mean? So if we're gonna try to if we really want to bring hip hop in schools, we have to find ways that anybody can draw a connection to hip hop and leverage it as an approach to teaching, right? And that's kind of where I'm at in my work. And that's why teaching the history is so important, because if you don't teach the history, then people just have this perception that hip hop is just ratchet, it's just violent, it's just homophobic, and like it might be cool on a Friday night, you know what I mean? But not on a Monday morning.
Understood.
Right? And it's really about demonstrating the value of hip hop. That it's not just a Friday night thing. It's not just a party thing. You know what I mean? There's true value that your students connect with, and that your students, because of maybe their lack of experience in the world, may not have a full understanding of. Like, how many of us have had to go to college to interrogate our Blackness in some instances?
Yeah.
We're doing that K-12, and that's where hip hop can come. So more empirical research, right? That depersonalizes hip hop and demonstrates how folks can leverage hip hop across the board, right? Outside of our personal selves and experiences.
That was a checkmate for me too.
Listen, I'm like,
I need to do better. Thank you.
I'm gonna do better, and I'm serious.
No, I mean, even thinking about the empirical research part, like, it's also important for, and I think this is why we have to create our own outlets about where our research goes, because when you present empirical research like that, like there's always this pushback, or the people who are reviewing this work don't have the cultural knowledge to even give feedback, right? And so anytime I use hip hop or Black language, the people are like, well, I don't really know what this word means, or if it should go here. Like, it just becomes a challenge and a barrier. But it just made me think about, like, how do I make it more empirical and not just make it personal? So I appreciate you for saying that.
And I'm thinking, even as a social studies methods professor, right? Like, we talk about so much, and I'm thankful that we have you here too, Kelly, is because we talk so much about American history. And there's like certain segments of that you know talk about, like, you know, enslavement, civil rights, American Revolution, like all these different topics. But what would it look like to put hip hop education within that same context? Because there's a historical exploration that needs to occur, where people don't just think that what they're hearing on the radio is new, is fresh, it's just like you said, ratchet, or whatever opinions they want to formulate, but there's actually a history there. And so you really checked me, because now I'm like, I'm about to add that to the course calendar. We need to really explore this as a way of being within social studies, not just like, oh, I'm gonna do it this one time, but I'm actually gonna do it and sustain and make it, you know, last.
Ooh, I need to talk to you, because I could go off right now. I could do a whole.
Kelly, did you want to answer? Because I'm thinking about, like,
the co-host.
You're the co-host. Look, you have to tell me, because the only thing I think about is hip hop literacy, which Edmund and I started talking about kind of offline. But my students, like, as soon as they see it on the syllabus, they like tense up. Like, how is hip hop a literacy? You know, like, it's just there is opposition. But I feel like if the more of us are making it foundational to the concept of how we learn, then the students will be like, oh, this is what we're doing. This is a part of education, because it does influence the way our students show up in the classroom and the way they process knowledge. That's
we will link up.
The hip hop text, like the music, the graffiti, whatever you're looking at, that is the curriculum, right? Like, when I was a high school teacher, I taught the entire Kendrick Lamar To Pimp a Butterfly album as a race relations unit, right? And we looked at like race relations like throughout the time period, right? And even though Kendrick, like, the album had just dropped, you know, it was, everybody was talking about it, you know, he's not necessarily shouting out, you know, all of these, like, it's not a whole long historical rep about the civil rights movement, but there's elements that he talks about race relations today where we can draw parallels to different historical events, right? And I think that that's the powerful thing about hip hop. Like I said, you know, so many times I feel like it tells a story of Black life, right? And as we know, as like, you know, social studies teachers, we talk about like the cyclical nature of like race relations and things like that, right? History tends to repeat itself, particularly when it comes to race relations and things like that, right? And so to know, like, in our current time, this isn't the first time we have seen backlash for incorporating Black history into schools, right? Let's analyze a song that talks about pushback, right? And like, let's think about all of the different time periods where this has occurred, right? And like, then let's bring in other primary and secondary sources and do like a content analysis, and, you know, let's create our own like playlist. If you had to create a playlist for this historical event, for this time period, the music doesn't have to be from that time period to capture the emotion and the feelings that were going on, right? Like, and I think that's what's so powerful too. It's like emotive, right? And so like, let's leverage that as like a historical tool, even as teachers, right?
You just gave the people so much for free.
Right, for free. They need to run you a check. But I feel like Charmaine and I talk about this a lot. Like, I was a former high school teacher, but all my students were Black, right? And so the ability, what you just said, like, those are things that I did in my classroom often, right? But there was a level of creativity that was already, like, when I would bring stuff, they would run with it. And I have found that my non-melanated students struggle to lean into that space and to think creatively and make those types of connections, right? Because even with their consumption of the hip hop world, they don't make those connections the ways that students make it, right? And so even though I might be feeling like I'm coming up with this dope assignment, this dope curriculum, it is still very challenging for my students to enter that space and really like lean in, because they have not been taught to engage in education in that particular way. So
that's their deficit.
Look,
that's good.
I get uncomfortable when y'all talking about Shakespeare. You know what I mean?
That's good.
There's a piece of that, right? Like, and I think the frustrating part about that is that they engage in it, right? Right? Subconsciously, intentionally, but there's no intent to be critical about. Like, I don't know, as a citizen of the world, I try to be critical of whatever I'm engaging in.
Yes.
Know? And that's why hip hop is so important to bring into educational spaces, so to show folks that it can and should be valued. You know what I mean? And then when you just bring in a hip hop, like, please don't identify as a hip hop educator if you're doing it once a year.
Come on.
Like, that's not it. You know, and that's why I think, and it's important to provide frameworks for people, right? The tangible and the applications and the teaching strategy, teaching approaches and lesson plans are cool, right? But we need to offer a framing for folks so they can take their own launching pad and path off that. Like Kelly gave amazing examples for a social studies classroom. What does hip hop look like in a math classroom? What is it like in a science classroom, right? And where can we take it? Like, hip hop is always going to continue to grow and it's always going to evolve, right? So how do we create the space and the context within educational spaces to allow that to happen?
That, you know what? This is so beautiful, y'all. And I want us to take all of what we just said and let's go forward with it. We're going to tap into the spirit of Robin G. Kelley and Freedom Dream for a moment. And I want to ask, what are your dreams for hip hop education for the next 50 years? We've been talking about where we are. We've been talking about where we've been. But like, if we can seriously freedom dream, what are your dreams, your personal dreams? Because we can't dream for everybody. For the next 50 years, like, what do you want to see? Y'all hop in.
What do you want to see? What do you want to see, Kelly?
Yo, so me and Edmund have been talking about this a lot because we just finished writing a book all about freedom dreaming in the field of hip hop and education. And
book coming out, we need to promote that.
Yeah. When is it coming out?
November. Sometime November.
Yeah. November, okay.
What's the book cover and all that?
Yeah. And for me, like, writing the book was like a real push for me to like actually engage in this goal, like freedom dreaming, right? Talking to a bunch of scholars about like what their dreams like for the field of hip hop and education is. It really made me realize that one of my dreams like transcends beyond hip hop, and it's really about society as a whole interrogating how we think about race and racism in our country, really like pushing back against like anti-Black narratives, right? And especially in teacher education, right? Like, I want us to lean into those conversations more, because I really feel that without having those critical conversations, we're never going to be able to realize hip hop as like a liberatory curricular pedagogical experience. And so for me, my freedom dream is just being in classrooms where teachers are doing that critical self-work. They're critiquing systemic racism, like they're going there, right? And they're doing that through hip hop, right? But they've already done that self-work.
Yeah. Fire.
Yes. This is so good. Edmund, where you at with this?
I got a number of freedom dreams. All right?
Come on, let's go.
Bear with me. My first freedom dream is that y'all cop that book that comes out in sometime in November.
Tell us the title.
It's called Teaching for Liberation, Freedom Dreaming in the field of hip hop education.
Come on.
And in this book, we interviewed a bunch of prominent scholars in the field, folks who do this work in academia, practicals, who do this in schools. We interviewed teachers, former students who have been taught through hip hop ed. because we want to talk to folks who have deeply engaged with hip hop, and who have some, who have understandings and challenges and critiques of it, and just say like, what do you think? And then also like we wanted to kind of correlate the themes from all the conversations. So first, the Freedom Dream is Cop That, Interrogate That. I think it's a really good book. Kelly and I really we did some things in there, and I'm really proud of it. And as an educator, one thing I would love to see, obviously, much more empirical research around hip hop and education, right? I think that hip hop is a solution to a lot of challenges that we see in schools, right? Hip hop can be used in teacher prep. I use it in teacher prep right now to challenge folks, like Kelly said, to challenge teachers to interrogate themselves, to interrogate race, positionality, privilege, right? To try to prepare them to be more effective in understanding the realities and nuances of their students that they'll be teaching soon in the future, right? I see hip hop as a tool and a conduit for culturally responsive and sustaining teaching, right? Like the OG Gloria Lasted Billings, she gave us this amazing framework of culturally responsive teaching. But you go into schools right now, I'm like, all right, what's culturally responsive in this joint? Yeah,
No.
we got our multicultural flag day, you know what I mean? Bring your food to school.
Get our cultural food, right? Every now and then, and dress it on up.
That's crazy that's still happening today. But culturally responsive teaching we don't see it in practice in the best ways that we should, right? So I don't even think that's everybody's on this. I'm an abolitionist educator. I'm a ratchetdemic, which is all dope. Like shout out to the OGs for putting that work out. But I feel like the foundation of a lot of that work has still not been absorbed and it's not practiced effectively, right? So I argue that hip hop is a practical approach and application of culturally responsive teaching, right? And like Charmaine mentioned earlier, like hip hop is different in every geographic setting. Even you go in the Bronx, they bump into Edie Osama. You go to Brooklyn, it's somebody else, right? Yeah. And what it allows us to do is take a snapshot and gain some deep understandings of who our students are in that moment. In that context, hip hop is contextual. Hip hop is different in New York than it is in Memphis, than it is in Atlanta, than it is in LA, right? So we talk about culture responsive teaching, right? Culture responsive also acknowledges that culture is nuanced and different in context, in different contexts, and amongst different students, right? Just because a student is a Black student or a Latino student, we can't assume that they ascribe to a particular culture, right? It's our job and our roles as educators to interrogate that. So leveraging hip hop as a vehicle to be more culturally responsive and sustaining, right? Because I think there are a lot of practical and tangible applications for that. And I think ultimately for me is like, I want to see hip hop. So we got all these STEM schools popping up, because there's a lot of STEM funding from the feds. Like I want to see hip hop ed schools. I want to see
that would be dope.
Can you imagine a school where on every level it's influenced by hip hop, from the design of the school to ed leadership, to school counseling, to teaching and practice, right? To how the schools are chilling, how the kids are chilling in the cafeteria, to the activities,
the music being played in the hallways when you come in.
Leveraging student and youth culture within the school holistically, not just one teacher doing it in the corner in the dark room.
Everybody.
But everybody, like, this is a school and this is our foundation. These are our fundamental things that we aim for. This is our framework that we follow, so that it can be a space where joy and liberation can be actualized. And it can be an inclusive space, because hip hop is all of that. It's inclusive. It's about, it promotes joy. It promotes liberation, and it practices love, right? So, I think for me, that's what I would love to see. And that's
listen, the fact that the Freedom Dreams, and if anybody opening a school on hip hop education, you better make sure Edmund and Kelly Ann is up in there, because they just said
I don't know why. Hold on, pause. This girl been calling you Kelly Ann forever. I don't know where she got that from. She's so confident in it.
I'm so confident in Kelly Allen, and I don't know why I want to call you two names. But thank you for the correction, Kelly Allen. Dr. Kelly Allen, I apologize. I don't know why I want to call you that. I feel like you're my home girl, and I just be like, because she grow vegetables, but that's taking me way off of where I want to go with this. One thing that you said is that hip hop could be hip hop as the vehicle for culturally responsiveness when it comes to teaching, and I love that. And I want to also shout out the OG Geneva Gay. because Geneva Gay is the one who actually put us on to culturally responsiveness. And then Dr. Gloria Laston Billings, our OG, came in with the culturally relevant pedagogy. So I really want to say that we need both. Hip hop needs to be culturally responsive, culturally relevant. It just needs to be culturally sustaining. Come on, Aline and your boy Jingo. Yeah. So like it needs to be all of that. And what you all created is just, even to share these thoughts, is just so beautiful. And that's why I'm telling folks, if they come up with a school or any of this, they know they got it from Edmund and Kelly.
And the other thing too, as you were saying that too, Edmund, I was like, but what on top of that, like if we had a teacher ed program, not like a course that I have to teach, but I can get a degree in hip hop education as I prepare. And I don't even think it just has to be a teacher. Maybe you'll be a community activist or you'll be somewhere. But if that is the culture, if this is our culture, I should be able to go into a space and learn more about that. I shouldn't have to do all the other mess. And I feel like if we can have an entire major focused on British studies, why can't we have an entire major focused on hip hop education? And just think about how that major would go up, like for real go up, because you will have so many students that will want to major in that, right? And I can see it going so many different places. I can send them become writers for hip hop magazines or for shows. Like there's so many different ways and spaces that they can go into, so we can even dream bigger, like, because our spaces, and I always tell, other educators, our stuff should not be supplements. It is the text. It is the text, and that is what we should be majoring in. So thank you for sharing that.
You know what? As you're talking, I'm thinking my oldest daughter we on college visit after college visit, right? So if anybody wants to donate to the college fund, just please hit us up. But one of the things that when you were talking is my daughter wants to be a corporate attorney. So we've been going to a lot of different business schools, and she wants to double major, poli-sci, finance, whatever. But what about marketing? People who are in corporate America, they could benefit from a hip hop education degree or minor, because y'all are using hip hop to sell Doritos, to sell Oreos, to sell whatever. And so I just see it so much bigger, because we are always tapping into hip hop to sell something, to market something, to move something. But like you said, Keisha, it's always an add-on. It's never looked at as the primary. It's always something secondary that people want to use.
Yeah, hip hop is interdisciplinary, truly, right? And that's why it's not just this genre of music. That's what makes it. And that's what lends it also to being a culture, right? You got hip hop, you got marketing, you got entrepreneurs. You know what I mean? You got business. Like you have Ian doing counseling and social work around hip hop, and that's the piece. There's so many facets where we can leverage hip hop, because if we remove the music from it, right? We still have a culture that's about criticality, critical consciousness, joy, liberation, right? And that's still,
even the art,
right? Art. And we didn't even touch on the community aspect on here, right? But the community aspect as well, like bringing folks into various spaces. So like hip hop, like I said, I think hip hop can save the world, but we have to give it an opportunity and chance.
Save the world.
We have to leverage it.
Yes. Okay, y'all. This has been.
First
of all, let me just say this. My students will be watching this episode when we get to the hip hop literacy section. So I cannot wait, because I feel like it's just gonna bust their head wide open, as my grandma would say. But my business. Okay, y'all. So we done held y'all longer than we should, but we just got 2 more segments, so bear with us. So we have this segment that is so ratchet that we love. It's called "What You Doing with Your Life." So we want to know, and we want people to be able to keep up with what y'all got going on. So what are y'all writing, reading, watching on TV? If you watching some good ratchet shows, please share them with your girl. What you listening to? Like, tell us all the things that you're doing right now in your life. And I'm gonna start with Kelly.
Man, once again, you better cop that freedom dreaming in the field of hip hop and education. You feel me? That's what I'm doing with my life. That's what I'm writing. Man, what I'm listening to right now? I've been listening to some Big X the Plug. He's a rapper from out of Houston. Man, if y'all don't go and listen to his song Texas, I don't know. So I've been exploring that, but I've been writing about hip hop and listening to some Big X.
Okay, listen, can I just say something about Texas real quick? You just
My bad.
I was about to say, you try to put it on. I said, listen,
if you don't turn your phone out.
hey, listen, in this, like, since you talked about Texas, Charmaine and I, we were doing our AERA review proposals at the last minute, like literally at the 9th hour. We didn't pull it up at Bar Louie, right? And it was a daggone DJ in there. You're talking about hip hop everywhere. The way me and Charmaine was turned up in this Bar Louie, right?
Okay.
But like his timing, the way he had the crowd going, like it was just, I said, I need that playlist right now. Like just had the whole Bar Louie. Then we telling her cousin said it's going up at Bar Louie like that. I'm like, the DJ was on point, right? And so we don't even realize how we engage with all of the elements of hip hop all the time. So thank you for shouting out Texas. I don't know.
And it makes you feel good. Don't the hip hop just make you feel? Because I mean, we forgot about the fact that we was doing these at the 11th hour, literally.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, I'm born in Houston, Texas, so I'm gonna always shout out Texas.
Come on, Texas. Come on, Texas. What you doing with your life? What you reading? What you watching? What you writing? What you listening to?
Doing a lot always. I think what I'm watching, I'm waiting for rap shit to come out.
Yes, right? You are my dog. That's my show.
I love that show. What I'm watching right now is I'm watching Dreaming Whilst Black on Showtime. Amazing. London.
Dreaming While Black, you said?
Yeah, Whilst. WILST, right? Amazing show that demonstrates, that highlights the Black experience in the UK. What am I listening to? I don't know what I'm listening to. I'm not listening to Drake.
Hey, what's my Drake in it? I'm not listening to Drake right now because you try to come to Meg, and I'm tired of him. Get up off Meg.
Oh no, I love Meg. I'm a Meg fan. I'm a Cardi fan.
I'm talking about Drake.
Oh, Drake. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I'm about to write an article about how problematic he could be, but he gets so much love generally. But that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, you know, I'm listening. I'm really I'm into Afro beats right now. That's the vibe. So this dope. Actually, not even Afro beats. This dope artist just dropped the album Nasty C. He's a South African artist. Really dope. My cousin is his manager. He's amazing artist. I'm listening to Burna Boy still, like phenomenal performer and artist. And what I'm working on, I'm actually writing a book. Actually, I haven't really talked about it much, but I was talking to Keisha about it recently. I'm working on a book that really will exemplify a lot of stuff that we're talking about, and that will bring this idea and framework of hip hop pedagogy to life, so we can leverage this in school. So I'm writing that for Heinemann right now, and that should come out sometime next year. Got to get, after this, got to get back to writing. But that's like the big project, and what I'm really focusing a lot of my energy on right now, and also like working on some empirical work. Kelly and I are going to start working on some empirical research where we're working with teachers, and doing some PD with them around hip hop education and practices, and trying to make sense of how they make sense of it, so we can figure out like what's the best approach to support this in teacher prep and teacher ed programs.
Nice.
I like this. Y'all booked and busy.
Listen, booked and busy and outside. Okay.
Busy and outside. Okay. I like that. Now listen, we got one more for y'all. This is my favorite. I see you. So see you shining. So I want you all to really think about, we often, especially in academia, I feel like we always go to the OGs, which they did pave the way, so we honor them up front. But there are people who are right on the same lines as us that are putting in good work. And so I want you all to think of any person or persons, if you got to keep your spirit, who is out here doing work in hip hop education. And you just want to be like, listen, I see you out here. So either one of y'all jump in, shout out your folks.
Hold up. So y'all be like editing this?
Nah.
Or we just live?
We live. You live, girl. No.
We don't want to be out here selling lies. It's lies.
Oh man. See, like, this is where I should have shouted out Chris Stassany. Right, so I had my questions on this.
You can do both.
They carry wisdom, and now they can be somebody that you also see out there doing the work. Don't get yourself caught up in them.
Yeah. So for sure. Like, once again, Chris asked me, like, for sure. But in regards to hip hop education too, like, I gotta shout out Delandria Hall. She's doing some really dope work about hip hop education, looking at particularly like Black women educators and, you know, the way that they think about hip hop in the classroom and how their hip hop identities show up in the classroom and how they bring that out of their students. And I just think her work is so dope. And so I gotta shout out D.
Thank you, Dr. Allen.
Who you
E,
got?
what you got? Who you got?
You know who I admire their work. Kaisha Jennings. She's a hip hop educator. She's in academia, but she does a lot of writing for like publications, like magazines and stuff. She's like a hip hop writer, and she really, I forget what city. She's like in one of the Carolinas, but I love that she puts on for her city and does a lot of writing on highlights local artists, which is super important, right? Because we all just can't always be on the Drakes and the big artists. Right? There's a lot of local talent in our communities that deserve to be platformed as well. And then, you know, I love Damaris Dunn's work. She does a lot of work around
Amazing.
I love her.
We love Damaris.
I just want to give her a shout out too, because you know, that's somebody I admire their work from afar as well. So, you know, that's
so sweet, y'all. Listen, this has been amazing. I think I'm gonna say it, and whoever get mad, whatever. I feel like this is one of the best conversations I've heard about hip hop in a very long time. I'm just saying, thoughtful,
I agree.
Fun, creative, and really forward thinking. So I appreciate y'all for coming on the Black Gaze podcast, like for real. I know that this episode is going to be useful for a lot of people. It's going to be I feel like they're going to learn a lot about hip hop education, but they're going to have practical strategies on what they can do to get started or to continue the work that they're already doing. So I'm gonna just give y'all our Black Church Bulletin announcements, and we out. So y'all, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and YouTube at Black Gaze Podcast or Black Gaze Pod. If you think you got something to bring to the Black Gaze Podcast, this season is almost over, but hit us up, and we might, pull up on you, or pull you on the podcast. We get a lot of people who say like they're using podcasts and videos in their classrooms and in their courses. Hit us up. We will pull up on y'all virtually, or if you in a space, we might pull up on y'all. But definitely follow us on social media. Support us. The Black Gaze Podcast is now an award-winning podcast.
Award-winning.
Excited about. So catch us at NCTE. Share this episode specifically because I know I have a lot of teachers who say they're ready to do this work and they don't know where to start. So definitely share this episode with them. And we appreciate y'all for supporting us. So we only have one last thing that y'all got to go out.
Can I interrupt you for just 1 second? I know you, but we got a whole article that dropped on Nipsey Hussle. The marathon continues.
Yeah.
Nobody else will. And so we gonna run that back. For y'all, we know that it just came out in the summer, but we have an article where we actually use Edmund's framework in there. We're talking about our experience in teacher education. We're talking about the impact that Nipsey Hussle had on us. We even pulled up to Crenshaw, and Keisha and I had on the wrong colors. The article had the whole story. So with that being said, we do want y'all to, and we alive. So don't even, thank God. But we alive, okay? But I do want to honor us. Shoot, we out here publishing on Hip Hop Ed, so I wanted to drop that.
Okay, and make sure that when Edmund and Kelly's book come out, because I will be copying it, that you all copy it, and definitely celebrate it because it is something that should be celebrated. It's a part of Black culture, and it got Black joy in it. So definitely copy it. I'm a model for y'all. I'm gonna go first, Charmaine second, Edmund, then Kelly. All right, y'all ready?
Let's get it.
Okay, so it's your girl, Dr. Porcher.
And it's your girl, Dr. Bertrand.
And it's your boy, Dr. Adjapong.
And it's Kelly Allen.
And
we out.
We out.